Dear friends and comrades, first of all, I bring you greetings on behalf of the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, and I thank you for inviting us to this important gathering of the World Peace Council. The cooperation between the World Peace Council and IADL is a long-lasting story, and that is logic, while peace is the main condition for the respect of fundamental rights, of all fundamental rights. And so, to fight for fundamental rights as we do, as the members of IADL do, without fighting for peace, wouldn't make any sense. We of course have no illusions that peace is a matter that can be settled by law. Comrade Pafilis very rightly said that the people are the real superpower, and we agree fully with that. It's mass movements that will stop warmongers and profiteers. And that is why IADL joined in the past the campaigns of the World Peace Council, such as the Stockholm Appeal and many others. But we think that all people of the world, in particular the popular sectors, aspire to respect for their fundamental rights as they were laid down in international legal instruments in the aftermath and as a result of the anti-fascist struggle of the people of all continents. Instruments such as the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We therefore think also that a sound legal argument to show the violations of fundamental rights that are caused by war and the illegality of aggression wars and aggressive pacts such as NATO itself can help to develop, to broaden and to strengthen the necessary mass movement. Today we are gathered to protest against NATO and to demand its dissolution. IADL has argued that an aggressive military pact like NATO is for various reasons illegal under international law. NATO and its main partners, in particular the United States of course, have been involved in numerous wars of aggression in many parts of the world. And Comrade Pafilis has, in his speech a few seconds ago, given a short list of some of these aggressions, and I think we can even complete that list. It would probably be too long to be mentioned in a speech like this. Launching a war of aggression was considered by the Nuremberg Tribunal as the mother of all international crimes. Most recently, we know that NATO committed several wars of aggression. We think about Yugoslavia, Libya, of course. NATO and its members should be held accountable for these crimes. And we think that the fight for accountability is an important part of the fight for peace. And NATO was, by the way, since the very beginning set up as an aggressive alliance. NATO's initial goal was to organize a war of aggression against the socialist countries. Of course, it was created under the pretext of the defense of the West against the so-called Soviet threat. But we know that the reality was different, and that NATO was the driving force behind the arms race, which had, amongst other things, a very negative impact on the people's right to development in all parts of the world. For both those reasons, the involvement in wars of aggression and the very initial goal of NATO as an aggressive military alliance, we think that NATO should be considered and branded as a criminal conspiracy to commit crimes against peace. But even intrinsically, the very existence of NATO violates international law. Article 2.4 of the UN Charter stipulates that all members of the UN shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state or in any other matter inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. Only the Security Council can, under international law, decide to use force or the threat of force based on the principles of collective security, forbidding any state or group of states to confiscate this power by any means. NATO is the organized confiscation of this power. Of course, the pretext to create it was that the West needed to organize self-defense against the socialist countries. Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations recognizes the right to individual or collective self-defense by states, but only if an aggression has effectively been committed. Preemptive self-defense and the organization for such preemptive self-defense is equally illegal. It is up to the Security Council and not to a group or an organization of countries such as NATO to take measures to re-establish peace under international law. The violation of international law is, by the way, formally laid down in Article 4 of the NATO Constitution, which provides that NATO partners will consult amongst themselves each time one of them thinks that the territorial integrity, the political independence, or the security of any of the NATO partners is threatened. That is, again, a clear theoretical laydown of the usurpation by a group of countries of a competence laid by the Charter exclusively with the Security Council. Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, of course, provides for the possibility to create regional arrangements. But Article 52 says that such regional arrangements or agencies and their activities are only admissible if consistent with the purposes and principles of the United Nations. And as said, NATO, as an aggressive military pact which violated frequently the right to self-determination of the people and committed frequently and numerous wars of aggression, is of course not consistent with the principles of the United Nations. NATO must be dissolved while it is a threat of the people to the people of the world, has been expressed here. Dissolving or the withdrawal of member states from NATO can only be the result of mass movements, not of any decision of a court of law. The opposition to wars of aggression committed by NATO against countries and people, against the arms race and its catastrophic consequences on the right to development of the people of the world, will of course be the main driving force to develop such a mass movement. However, building a sound legal argument to show that NATO is illegal under international law and must be considered as a criminal conspiracy to commit crimes against peace can help to develop, broaden and strengthen such a movement. As citizens, the members of IADL participate like all others in the peace movement. As legally trained professionals, we also want to make this specific contribution to the peace movement, and in particular in the struggle against NATO. In the coming years, I think there are many points on which our two organizations can and should work together. IADL is planning a conference on the illegality of military bases abroad. And we think that military bases are not only illegal, but of course are also a direct threat to the peace. We will also organize in 2018, at the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the Nakba, a year of solidarity with Palestine, because we think that the denial of the rights of the Palestinian people is actually a threat to peace, not only in the region, but also on a more broad international level. And we know your organization has been vocal and active in supporting the Palestinian people. So I hope and I'm sure we will meet each other at this occasion also. And finally, I think we should work together to defend the people and the countries of the Middle East who are facing, in the aftermath and in the continuation of the war of aggression against Iraq, a campaign launched by the United States with the participation of its NATO partners, sowing chaos, destroying independent countries, sowing terror amongst the people, violating the people's sovereignty and the right to self-determination, such as the aggression on the Syrian people shows clearly, in order to redesign the Middle East, not according to the sovereign will of the people of the Middle East, but according to the interests of US imperialism and its NATO allies. We think there is an important focus there for all of us. It's a region. There are, of course, other peace-threatening situations in the world, but we think this is a particular region where imperialism is extremely aggressive now, is using fascist criminal gangs to organize proxy wars against the people, where they use fascist ideology, hate ideology, to divide the people, as the Nazis did in Europe. And we think we really have to work together to stop this and to defend the people of the Middle East and their sovereign right to self-determination against this aggression by the United States and NATO partners. And so I hope and I'm sure that we will work together in these fields and in many others, but I think these are three important questions that should be on both our agendas in the coming years from now. Thank you very much.